Awesome. All right, welcome everybody. We're back at it. This is actually week 7, which is exciting. I'm going to do a couple housekeeping things. First, I sent the email today and I added a little like testimonial feedback thing. So if you guys have any feedback or testimonials or anything, but interestingly enough, I linked the testimonial page to the pictures and not the button. So I'm just going to show you real quick what I did so that you can just see. I think it goes without saying, but here's the email. If you scroll down, it says feedback. You know, I'm looking for feedback and testimonials. And instead of clicking this button, click the actual picture and it'll take you to this little testimonial, and you can put your name and information and anything that you, and this is only shared with me. And if you're okay, I might use it as like positive testimonial stuff if you're comfortable. So that's one housekeeping thing. And yeah, that was about it. Just wanted to bring everybody's attention to that I attached the wrong thing to the wrong place. Well, the right thing to the wrong place. So second, I guess it's not really housekeeping. I'm going to do a brief little recap of the things that we talked about last week, because originally I was back pain. Obviously back pain is like this massive topic. It's impossible to cover in a 20-minute little time chunk. I think we did pretty good. So what I did was I picked out 5 points that I wanted to talk about, and we only made it through 3. So I'm just going to do a little brief synopsis about those 3 for anybody that didn't watch. It'll be just brief. So these were the top 5, 5 possible contributors to some back pain. First one was asymmetry. Well, you know, either you're standing cattywampus, or you're standing like you're taking a hip, or you sit with your legs crossed, which is number 2. So asymmetry was number 1. With your legs crossed is number 2. And then kind of going along with that is number 3, which was tightness in the hips. So one of the key things, and we gave little stretches. So if you have any, this is just to spark everybody's mind of where we were last time. So if you have questions or you're about that, reference, it's the last link, the last button link in the email. Just click on that and you can watch last week's if you didn't. So now we're going to move forward, but I want to reiterate one of the things, and we're going to cover a little bit of anatomy. So so 4 and 5, 4 is poor posture and 5 is tight hip flexors. So first, we're going to talk about poor posture, and in order to do, and why poor posture is important to address with back pain. So there was a very, very important little segment that I did last week about alternating joints. And so I'm going to talk about that and bring that picture back up. So the body is masterfully created. It's amazing. And there are some very simple principles applied to a very complex structure. So the body is organized in alternating joints of stable, mobile, stable, mobile. So there's some really cool graphics. And I'm going to just share my screen with you again so that I can show you this. So this is a little depiction. I'll let your brain process that for a second. I think you can see my cursor. So here at the bottom, all of these green ones are mobile joints that have lots of range of motion, lots of what's called degrees of freedom, where they move and not just up and down, side to side. They're super complicated. And that we have at the ankles, and you can see it alternate. And then a stable joint is something that it doesn't move very much in one direction or the other, but it will in, like the knee. The knee just has one range along with elbow. It's a good one to show. And so that there's not a lot of directions of movement. The shoulder that's abduction, flexion, extension. internal rotation, external rotation. It's got all these degrees. It's all these different places it can go. The knee and the elbow just flex and extend. So that's a stable joint. It doesn't have a lot of options. And when we give it options, that's when it causes problems. Or vice versa, if we take those options away, that also causes problems. So the back is caught in the middle of that. I'm just gonna share real quick again. So the back needs to be a stable joint. But if we mess with this, the mobility here of the thoracic spine and the mobility of the hips, if either one of these are tight, then this stable joint is asked to be a mobile joint. And that causes an unhappy back. So we talked a lot about hips, and we're still going to talk about some more hips today. But I want to talk about that thoracic spine, so just above the low back. So back to this principle of mobile, stable, mobile, stable, mobile, stable. If your thoracic spine, which is right here, if this is stable, it causes your lumbar spine to have to be mobile. So this is something that is, anybody that has a lot of tension or has a lot of stress and they keep it in the middle of their shoulder blades. I mean, that's me. I'm in that boat. You know, it's a super common boat to be in, but that's going to then mess with your low back. So even if you don't perceive tightness in between your shoulder blades or here in your chest, all of that, if it's tight, it's going to cause problems. So this is mobilization. I'm going to show you here real quick. A mobilization for the thoracic spine. It's real simple to do in any chair that has a back. So I'm going to show that to you now, because we want, oftentimes what will happen is we do this. We flex, and this is our comfortable position, but we need that thoracic spine to be able to expand and extend. So this is a little thing. So in a regular chair, take a chair with my stool and the back of this table. So you want to find a chair that's actually going to hit you in that spot, like right between your shoulder blades. So pretend I'm sitting in a chair. So then you can find a chair or create this. You don't have to do it at this very second, but this is what I'm looking for. If you're sitting here in a chair, nice and upright, you give yourself a big hug, and then you're going to lean back over so that this is preventing you, so that you are actually, so instead of just leaning back from my low back, I'm going to be leaning from wherever this is pivoting. And then if you put your elbows over top, it just kind of feels good. And you're going to repeatedly move through that. So I like to do this. So if you hold in that extended position for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then come back. You can repeat that like 5 to 10 times. You're not really going to hurt too much. And what you'll notice is that you're asking for motion and movement that most of us right now aren't recruiting, because we're in this state of tension, and this tension in our chest and tension in our low back. You might feel that in a couple of different places, but what that's going to do is open up your chest a little bit and ask for movement of your thoracic spine in a spot that you don't normally do. You don't normally ask it. So then you can move this. You know, if you find a different spot, you can stop a tiny bit. That's not my favorite. But then you can ask for that movement to come from a different position, from a different spot. Now, if you have, this is just one way. If you have a foam roller, which not everybody has, but if you have one, this is a very, very similar thing that you can do if you lie flat and put that foam roller perpendicular to your spine. So if you pretend I'm on my back, and you put that here at your spine, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to cross your arms, laying flat on your back, laying on this, and rock in different spots. And then wherever you put this on your back is where your spine will pivot. You can move it up a little bit or move it down a little bit and just ask for motion and movement where we're probably not calling for it right now. Awesome. Does that make sense? It's a fun one. It's a good one. And one you can do in a lot of kitchen chairs too. So then moving on, the front of the hips. So I am gonna share my screen again. How about a counter that hits there if I'm standing? Yeah, absolutely. The question was, what if you use like a counter? And as long as you can use any surface that you want, as long as you vary it from a different position, you know, so you're allowing that to hit at a different spot. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great, yeah, get creative. Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen here again. So the sacrum, let me do this. So this isn't exactly what I want. Yeah, I'll just talk through it. So there are muscles in the front of the spine that attach to the lower part of your low back that go down to the fronts of your hips. They're your hip flexor muscles. And they also integrate with your quadricep muscles. So if you're sitting a lot, which a lot of us are, there's a shortening that's happening to those hip flexors. So if you sit and then you go to a standing position, you're asking for those muscles to go from short to long, and they're gonna pull your spine, and that doesn't feel good for anybody. So I wanna talk through just the mechanics of how to stretch out your hip flexors. So let me grab Mr. Bones here. So your hip flexors attach here to the side of your spine, and then they run down and attach to the front of your hip. So if you are in a seated position, they are short. So then when you go to stand up, they're long. So to stretch them, you need to bring your knee behind your hip. So there are a gazillion ways to do this. And the easiest, and probably the easiest accessible, is just to a standing position. If you grab your like you're gonna stretch your quad, and then without bending forward, bring your knee behind your hip. So here, this is quad. Here, this is hip flexor. One thing I want to reiterate, I'm going to do it even though I'm standing up and you can't see it. I don't want this to happen. You should stay upright. You flex that knee and bring that knee behind your hip. So what that's going to do is then, because your quads and your hip flexors are like, they merge and they do very, very similar things, but we want to be able to stretch independently your quads from your hip flexors. So that's like the super, just make sure we do both sides, because now I feel like I have one hip flexor. So again, to get a true physiological lengthening of that tissue, you need to hold it for at least a minute. At least a minute. And that's the one thing that we just think that we're getting a good stretch. Like I just felt like I got a good stretch on my left, even though I did it for like 10 seconds. You need to actually hold it for at least 60 seconds. Then you can get creative. That's like the most simple way. You can do this exact same thing sideline, and then it's a little bit easier to move that knee behind your hip, but you have to be super aware of what your upper body is doing. Because if you are arching your spine, then you're not helping the situation. That spine needs to be as neutral as possible. Let me check here. Yeah, I can give some other ways to do. There's a stretch that's my favorite, which is the pretzel stretch. Let me show you that one, because this is a really, really, really good one for your hip flexors. So again, hip flexors are here in the front of the hip. So if I'm going to bring my top leg forward and my bottom leg behind me. And I'm going to stretch. So I'm actually stretching the hip that's towards the ground. You can anchor this one down this way too. This one is one of my favorite stretches. And I give this to a lot of people to do. And it is a nice passive way, meaning you're not weighted, nothing is weighted. And it's a real simple, easy stretch to do once you get the movement down, because it's sometimes a little complicated to get into that position. Yeah, that's really all I had. This was kind of a continuation from last week, since back pain is a tricky one. But all of those are just super simple stretches that I had a couple people last week who had texted me afterwards, and they said that even just doing the class, they woke up the next morning with less pain in their back. So that was kind of, that's what we're going for. That's what we're going for. Does anybody have any questions about anything? I can, if you do, just unmute yourself or type. So because of damage, can't grab my foot. Yes. So the question is, if you can't reach out, if you can't reach and grab your foot, let me grab a towel. If you can't grab your foot, just use a hand towel. So if you have a hand towel, put it around your ankle, and that way you can hold on to that way. Yeah, great question. Great question. What was the other, Nancy, did you have something?
When we do the arm, or how you did the arms, should we alternate? Like flip them over?
Oh, like I just did one side of the pretzel stretch?
Well, I just didn't know if moving the arms made a difference on that lean back stretch.
Oh, yes. As long, I just like to lock out the shoulders, so you're not getting a false sense of range of motion from your shoulders. So that's why I kind of just like to lock them out.
Okay.
So the question of it was alternating which one is on top. Not necessarily a huge thing to concentrate on, but good question to make sure we're not doing the same thing over and over.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, if you wanted to even that out, just maybe do every other. So if you're gonna do a total of 10, do 5 on one side, 5 with the other. Yeah. Totally reasonable question.
I'm glad you asked that, Nancy, because I was going to ask that next.
Yeah, and often that's why I always say, if one person has that question, then more than often other people have it too.
Right.
Yeah. No, great question. Great question. I'll let you guys think about that for a second. Is there any topics that anybody has on their brain that they would want me to cover in future sessions? If you have anything on your brain, great. If not, you can send me something, because back pain was obviously a very, very obvious one. And I've had a couple people ask for some hand and elbow things. That's probably the next direction that I'll go. We've got a lot of typing and a lot of cell phone holding, so I'll probably do hands and elbow next. Yeah, wrist pain. Yep, a lot of people are talking about that. Awesome. Any questions? Any suggestions? Otherwise, time flies when you're having fun.
Thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. I'm going to stop the recording here.